Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly unprecedented moment in the automotive world. We're looking at Honda, one of the most iconic engineering powerhouses on the planet, and they are currently navigating a staggering financial crisis. We're going to examine their massive retreat from electric vehicle development, their strategic pivot back to hybrids, and honestly, the most fascinating part of all, the historical fallback strategy that's literally keeping the whole shebang afloat.
Okay, let's dive into this, starting with a jaw-dropping figure, 2.5 trillion yen. Yeah, trillion with a T. According to Honda's official corporate release, this is the maximum expected total loss resulting from a complete reassessment of their automobile electrification strategy. To put that into perspective, we're talking about a massive multi-billion-dollar financial hit born from a strategy that they're now rapidly unwinding.
And the severity of this miscalculation, it absolutely cannot be overstated. Honda is projecting an operating loss of around 400 billion yen, just for the fiscal year ending March 2026. This marks the company's first operating loss since they went public all the way back in 1957. I mean, it's an incredibly rare stumble for a company renowned for its calculated engineering and global stability.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how rapidly their bottom line collapsed. Their previous forecast anticipated a healthy 550 billion yen operating profit, but the revised forecast, the floor just completely fell out. They're projecting a massive plunge deep into the red, a loss between 270 and 570 billion yen. So why the sudden collapse? Well, it boils down to two main factors: a significant slowdown in EV market adoption in the US and incredibly fierce competition over in China. In China, consumers are demanding software-defined vehicles with advanced driver assistance systems, and rapid-moving Chinese EV makers simply outpaced Honda's product development cycles.
So, Section 1, Reversing the EV Strategy. How exactly do you stop a free fall like that? Well, instead of pushing forward, Honda has outright canceled the development and market launch of three major North American EV models: the Honda Zero SUV, the Zero Saloon, and the Acura RSX. These cancellations mean massive write-offs on factory assets and supplier compensation. But in the face of declining EV demand, Honda is retreating to what they do best, right? Highly reliable hybrid technology. They're throwing their weight behind models like the CR-V EH EV, the Civic Hybrid, and the Jazz Hybrid, just trying to stabilize their balance sheet and regain cost competitiveness.
And look, a failure of this magnitude brings serious accountability at the top. Honda announced that their executives are directly absorbing the financial blow. Executive council members and managing executive officers are taking 20 to 30% pay cuts for 3 months. Furthermore, the president and the representative executive officer, they are completely forfeiting their short-term performance bonuses.
Let's move to Section 2, the 1950s flashback, a history of crises, and see how this builds. Because if you know Honda's history, you know that facing a company-threatening financial crisis is actually baked directly into their DNA. Back in 1952, founder Soichiro Honda was obsessed with precision and making world-class engines. So what did he do? He spent 450 million yen importing the absolute finest machine tools from America, Germany, and Switzerland. The problem? That was literally 75 times the company's total capital at the time. It was an absolutely insane leveraged gamble that pushed the young company right to the brink of bankruptcy. This historical nightmare really kicked off in 1953. To pay off their massive debt, they rushed products to market that just completely failed. The Juno K-Type scooter overheated, and the Dream 4e motorcycle had this chronic carburetor flaw that caused it to stall. With warehouses full of returned products, they were functionally bankrupt. But in 1954, Honda's brilliant business partner, Takeo Fujisawa, convinced a mid-level branch manager at Mitsubishi Bank to stake his own career on giving Honda emergency credit. That lifeline allowed them to survive long enough to reach 1958, where they launched the vehicle that changed human history.
Born from that desperate crisis was the 50cc Super Cub. It was a quiet, reliable, step-through four-stroke machine. Amazingly, Fujisawa originally pitched the concept specifically for soba noodle delivery in Japan. He insisted it needed to be easy enough to ride with one hand while holding a tray of food in the other. It was cheap, it didn't leak oil, and it was virtually indestructible.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happened next. The Super Cub didn't just save Honda, it completely shattered expectations and became the biggest sales success story in motorcycling history. To date, the Super Cub is the most produced motor vehicle ever made, eventually surpassing well over 100 million units globally.
Which brings us to Section 3, Motorcycles, the Financial Moat.
Let's bring our narrative right back to the present day, because history is rhyming in a spectacular way. While Honda's automobile division is bleeding billions over the EV miscalculation, their two-wheel division is acting as their ultimate financial savior. Lock this number into your memory: 20.7 million. That is the staggering all-time record number of motorcycles and scooters Honda sold in the year 2025. After a post-COVID dip, they've roared back with 5 consecutive years of recovery to reinforce their undisputed global leadership in two-wheelers.
And this two-wheel dominance is incredibly broad geographically. They saw double-digit growth in Latin America at 15.6%. In Europe, despite an overall industry downturn, they still posted a 4.3% increase. And incredibly, in the ASEAN region, which accounts for nearly half of their global volumes, they are on track to hit 10 million annual units by 2026 alone.
So the crucial point is, how are they going to pay for up to 2.5 trillion yen in automotive losses and still maintain stable returns for their shareholders? Honda's latest corporate strategy release reveals exactly how they plan to survive this, by, quote, leveraging solid earnings power and the cash-generating capability of its motorcycle and financial services businesses. Just like the 1950s, the motorcycles are rescuing the four-wheeled ambitions.
What you should take away from this is a clear picture of Honda's real-time tactical retreat and counterattack. On one hand, they're actively retreating where they're weak in four wheels, even confirming they're completely exiting the South Korean passenger vehicle market this year. But on the other hand, they're doubling down where they are strong in two wheels. They're currently building the world's largest dedicated electric two-wheeler plant in India, slated for 2026. They are using the massive profits of their traditional motorcycle empire to fund their transition into an electric two-wheeled future.
Which brings us to the ultimate question we're left to ponder. Honda has officially pulled the emergency brake on their automobile EV plans, retreating to the safety of hybrids, all while leaning heavily on the record-breaking profits of their global motorcycle empire. But will this legendary survival playbook, the very same one that saved them in the 1950s, be enough to buy them the time they need to eventually win against today's hyper-fast, incredibly fierce Chinese EV competitors? It is one of the most fascinating corporate pivots of the decade, and we are absolutely going to be watching closely. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the data.